Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. No more eggnog, Mariah Carey, or unwrapping gifts. With Christmas behind us and a big New Year's Eve forthcoming, right now it's about catching you up on all that's happening in the sports universe, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with your host, JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard, and for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Thursday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And just some housekeeping before I begin. I want to start off by saying, as we close out this final podcast of 2025, I want to thank everyone who has hopped on board, especially over the past year, whether you found me on Apple, Spotify, the podcast platforms, wherever you may listen to them, here on the YouTube channel at JAYREELZ, which I just surpassed 900 subscribers this morning, and I'm certainly appreciative and grateful for that support from those out there, and I hope to go to 1,000, maybe by New Year's Day. That's another 100 over the next 3 days, so I don't think that's going to happen, but hey, I could try with my heart and hustle. I need your help, so if you hit subscribe, please do that. I'd appreciate it. But I do want to thank everyone who have followed me over the past year, and even beyond for that matter, my day ones, or if this is your first day, thank you so much. Congratulations, and just an overall sincere thank you from yours truly. It goes a long way as I try to continue to build this platform, as I try to build this channel, as I try to just do anything and everything to get the word out there for someone who's putting forth true sports talk, real sports talk, none of this clickbait, rage bait, garbage, nonsense, made by a sports fan for you guys and gals who are sports fans. So I want to thank you first and foremost. The second thing is that this is going to be the only podcast of the week, no podcast on New Year's Day, because New Year's Eve, I'm going to have an epic live stream. So what is that going to be, JAYREELZ? On the YouTube channel, at JAYREELZ, as I mentioned. If you go ahead and hit subscribe one more time, you're going to watch me run through Manhattan to close out the 2025 year. I'll talk sports. I'll talk whatever's on your mind. You want to talk about goals for next year? You want to talk about how this year went? And I know it's going to be tricky trying to read comments, but I'll take pauses throughout my journey from the southern tip of Manhattan all the way to right there before the bridge underneath the one train as it goes from Manhattan into the Bronx. So that will be my last stop. It'll probably be, I guess, almost 14 miles. So I'm going to do that 9:30 a.m. Now, the time may change. It may. Right now, I'm putting it in pencil, not in Sharpie just yet, where I'm going to have this live stream 9:30 a.m. I want to have some time to recuperate, recover. I was thinking about doing it in my normal hour at 12 noon, each and every Wednesday when I do the live stream. And that could happen. But right now, just set your reminders for 9:30 a.m. And if it does change, you're going to have to keep yourself locked in on the channel for any updates regarding that. So please just stay tuned for what's going on there. So that's what we have there as far as the housekeeping goes. Now let me go right ahead and turn my attention to the NFL, because right now you have to look at, in essence, 3 games. And I'll recap some of the other games that had implications when it comes to the playoffs day yesterday. But now it boils down to 3 games. And the NFL, they set it up perfectly as far as your weekend goes. And I don't want to look too far ahead just yet, but these are going to be the 3 games that truly matter when it's all said and done. That is this coming Saturday at 4:30, Carolina at Tampa for the NFC South. 8 o'clock or 8:15. The NFC West will be 1, as well as the 1 seed in the conference, where Seattle will go to San Francisco. And then game 272 of the year, the final one in Pittsburgh, where the Baltimore Ravens will square off against the Pittsburgh Steelers for the AFC North division and a spot for the postseason. How we got there, I'll be sure to break it all down. And let me start with the game Saturday, and I'll move it along as we get to Sunday and sprinkle in a few other things in between before I get to the college football. I thought the Buccaneers had a great shot to drawing even with the Panthers, considering that the Seahawks had to travel east 3 hours. As we all know, sometimes those games are very tricky when you're going west to east and getting acclimated to the time difference. And it looked like for a second that the Carolina Panthers, who were in the game, it was 3-3 at the half, and you kind of made you think, all right, what's going to happen here? But the first possession of the second half, the Carolina Panthers didn't do anything with the ball. And then Seattle started to break away. They got the touchdown to make it 10-3. And I also believe in that time frame, I believe Carolina had a turnover. Let me just double check that. I want to make sure before I put the cart before the horse as I pull up Seattle and Carolina yesterday. And it was a situation where they scored on back-to-back possessions there, but it was actually a quick turnaround, and that was the difference of the game, where the Panthers, at that point, you could tell that they weren't going to have any capability to come back. And as I open up the play-by-play here, the start of the second half had the interception. As a matter of fact, you had the two quick turnovers where it looked like the Panthers were going to be able to capitalize and turn it around because Seattle got the ball coming out of the second half, and then they threw a pick there, and it made you think Sam Darnold, here we go again. But then on the next play, fumbled the ball where deep in their own territory, so deep in Carolina territory, where they were able to capitalize, get the touchdown, and then they got the pick just 3 plays in on that third down. Pick there, Bryce Young, who was awful in the game, and I can't even imagine, if you're a Panther fan, what you must think of your quarterback, because here's a guy, we all understand where he was drafted, came from Alabama, the program, etc. But you just don't know from one game to the next which Bryce Young you're going to get. And that has to be not only just frustrating, but even infuriating, because his performance yesterday was putrid. So even after the fumble, and then what does he do? He throws a pick, which leads to the touchdown, 17-3, and that's the game. Because there's no way they're going to come back by any stretch. And I understand they got the touchdown after the Seahawks made it 17-3. So, all right, 17-10 early fourth quarter. So now you're thinking, all right, now we're in the game. But then Seattle went ahead, made it 20-10. They ended up winning 27-10, and that was your ball game. But here are the stats for Bryce Young in that game. 14 for 24, had the key pick, which really turned the game around, because it was 10-3, and then they got the pick, and that was it, if you ask me. 54 yards. I mean, what is Dave Canales, the head coach, doing down there in Carolina? One game against Atlanta, he'll throw for 480 yards, and you're thinking, wow, this is the quarterback that we've been hoping for, dying for since the days of Cam Newton. And now, yesterday, where if they would have won the game, they would have won the NFC South, and as it was a complete implosion there in the second half. So the Panthers, who have leeway because they had that game ahead in the standings, and what was happening there down in South Florida, which I'll get to in a minute, it just has to boggle your mind if you're a Panther fan or someone who roots for that team, or maybe even that player for that matter, because how is it that Bryce Young from 1 week to the next could look like the number 3 overall pick that he was a few years back, or look like a guy who's going to play himself out of the league from 1 week to the next? It's hard to figure out. And then when you look at what had taken place in Miami, to a Quinn Ewers comes out of the gate. Now, mind you, the Buccaneers go down and opening drive touchdown. You think, all right, good start, away we go. But then Quinn Ewers, who did not play well in his first game the week before, and then here he is coming out of the gate with big touchdown passes to guys I never even heard of, quite frankly. And I understand they're playing out the string, but they get off to a big lead and they hang on the win 20-17 when it was all said and done. But the Buccaneers certainly didn't distinguish themselves as a team who got off to a 6-2 start this year. And right now they are, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, they are 7-9. The Buccaneers, I mean, think about this. They were 6-2, and since then, they're 1-6. I mean, you can't make it up. And even if the Buccaneers, let's say, somehow, some way win this division, how do you even think that Todd Bowles comes back? Because even if they host a game in their building, which the chances are they'll probably play the Rams, and let's say the Rams go in there and blow their doors off, just because they won a division, I mean, seriously? All right, so if they beat the Panthers in their building, which you would think they're expected to do, and if they get blown out in the wild card round, I'm not bringing them back. Why? if you're the Glazers, the owners, and the GM, there's no way you bring him back. Because this team got off to that great start, and they beat good teams along the way. It's not as if they beat up a bad bunch of teams. They beat Seattle in Seattle. If I pull up the Tampa schedule here real quick, I mean, the first half of the year, they were actually doing very well. And then they had that stretch in the middle of the year where they lost at Buffalo, and they lost to the Falcons at home, which was inexcusable when you think about it. And that came a little bit later on. But let's take a look at Tampa real quick. I mean, here's the Buccaneers schedule. All right, they beat the Texans in week 2. I understand it was week 2, but still, when you look at it now, very impressive. They beat the Seahawks in Seattle. They beat the Niners in their building. That was when the Niners were slumping. Remember, Brock Purdy in and out of the lineup. And even though Mac Jones actually played pretty well during that stretch, but here they were. Actually, they lost to the Lions. They were 5-1, 6-2. And then in that stretch, they lost to the Patriots in their building, at Buffalo, at the Rams. All right, not easy. And they beat the Cardinals. But then they lost to the Saints, inexplicable. Lost to the Falcons, again, inexplicable. And then here they are. They've now lost not only 7 of 9. Or maybe I take that back. That was 5-1. Make sure I do my math correctly. They have actually lost. They've lost 7 of the last 8 and 8 of the last 10. I mean, this Tampa team, I picked them as an over at 9.5. At 6-2, I'm flying high. And even though with that stretch of New England, Buffalo, and the Rams, all right, tough stretch. But then explain to me what happened to the Saints. Explain to me what happened to the Falcon game at home when they had a lead. The Panther game in Carolina, losing in Miami. I mean, they have just fallen off a cliff. And I wouldn't bring them back. So that's my point there. And listen, who's going to win that game? I couldn't even tell you. I really can't. I would say maybe if my life depended on it, I would say the Buccaneers because they're at home. But they have not played well. They've been awful. And watch Bryce Young next week be the guy that threw for 400 some odd yards against the Falcons. And actually in the game 2 weeks ago against the Buccaneers, let me just pull up what his numbers were in that game. I mean, Bryce Young wasn't, 21 for 32, 2 touchdowns, 191 yards. I mean, a hell of a lot better than what he did yesterday. But I tell you, I have very little faith in the Buccaneers. And would I be shocked if the Panthers win in Tampa? Absolutely not. So to me, that's a stay away. I wouldn't even know what to pick. I'd say Tampa only because the game is in their building. Other than that, and that's not a strong home field advantage. Maybe I should pick the Panthers. I don't know. But to me, I couldn't even tell you. And it's Saturday night. I just mentioned about the game, Seattle and Carolina. So they win. Obviously put themselves in a position where they can win the NFC West in San Francisco. And that was a wild game last night. I was so bent out of shape for the Steeler game. I did not watch that game. I did not. I was out. I went out to dinner. And I came back and I was doing a few things in the apartment. I was following the game. It was back and forth. I mean, it was literally a barn burner. 7-0 and 7-7, 14-7, 14-14. I mean, a million lead changes. The Bears had to lead there late, 38-35. The Niners scored the touchdown there late. And then as the Bears are trying to get the answer to take the lead there late at 42-38, and at 2nd and goal with 5 seconds to go, last play of the game, Caleb Williams, who had a very good game, scrambling around here, there, trying to find an answer, throws a prayer into the end zone, falls short. Niners win. And I will say this, the Bears showed me something yesterday because I get it that there are no moral victories, but when you take a look at a team who, as I've said before, and I didn't hear this anywhere, the Bears are last year's Commanders. This team has played well. This team is overachieved, and they are going to be a tough out. And right now they're going to have the 2 seed in the NFC, barring a miracle where the Bears lose to the Lions and the Eagles end up beating the Commanders in their building. But they're going to have minimum 2 games in their building before having to possibly go back to San Francisco for a championship game. And if last night was any indication of what maybe a second go-around between those 2 teams is going to be, then I'm here for it. And here it was about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks ago, where you had the Seahawks beat the Rams on that Thursday night game. Well, last night, could rival game of the year between two teams that could face one another in a championship setting. And listen, the Bears impressed me. I understand I didn't watch the game. I went back and watched the whole highlight reel, and just to see the resolve and even the improvement of Caleb Williams and him starting to gain momentum and start to get a better feel for his team, for his play. I mean, there's anything short of impressive, then you're selling yourself short, because he has certainly grown up in front of our eyes. Now, let's see what's going to happen once you get to the playoffs, but who knows? Maybe the Bears are going to be a tough out here when we get to January. And with the Niner win, obviously that sets them in play for the game Saturday night, right after the Carolina-Tampa game. And listen, both teams are coming in hot. The Seahawks, I believe they won, 6 in a row? And I believe the same for the Niners. Let me pull them up real quick when I pull up the standings here. And right now, they currently have a game lead in the division, 13-3 Seahawks, 12-4 Niners. And of course, the Niners win, they'll get the 1 seed based on the tiebreaker. And of course, they would have swept the Seahawks in the season series, even more importantly. Both teams coming in, winners of 6 straight. Obviously, something's got to give. And right now, I'd have to say the Niners. Now, the Niner defense, I tell you, I'd be a little concerned. Now, if Sam Darnold's on his game, maybe they'll pull out a victory and win the NFC West and get the 1 seed. And listen, the Niners, a masterful job by Kyle Shanahan as far as what he's done with that team. Having Mac Jones in the middle of the year without Brock Purdy and him stemming the tide from not having the season implode. Their defense, which has been ravaged by injuries, from Fred Warner to, I mean, you're going down the list. I mean, it's just been a mass unit to Nick Bosa, and they still have been able to piecemeal it together. Now, their defense would scare me. They gave up 27 to the Colts there on a Monday night, and then 38 at home to the Bears. So that's going to be a great game, I think. Seattle, San Francisco. I mean, it's for who gets the 1 seed. My gut is going to tell me Niners. I'm hoping and rooting hard for the Seahawks to win. I do not want to see the Niners in a 1 seed. I do not. And think about this, people. If they do get the 1 seed, that means they don't have to, they can sleep in their beds from now until February. Because they'll have a bye, first and foremost. Then they'll have a divisional round and a championship game in their building if they do not get picked off in the divisional round. But let's say they get to a championship game and they win. Guess what? The Super Bowl is going to be in their building. So they won't have to, forget about even leave the state of California. They won't have to leave the county because they'll be home literally throughout the entire postseason. So that's why I do not want them to get the 1 seed. And if they do happen to become a 5, 6, or 7, well, they'll be a 5 or 6 seed because the Packers have the 7 seed locked up. Then you have a situation where the Niners, they'll earn it if they get to a Super Bowl and play in their building for a chance to raise their 6th Lombardi trophy. As you know, they've squandered the last 3 times, losing to Baltimore back in that 2012 season. And then, of course, the Chiefs have beaten them twice here during this last stretch, 2020 and in 2023, when the Chiefs won their Super Bowls. So that scenario there, I think the Niners are going to win, but I'm rooting hard for the Seahawks, and I wouldn't be shocked if they win. And then the final piece to this NFL drama puzzle for Week 18, Saturday night you had Baltimore, Green Bay, no Jordan Love, who's in concussion protocol, no Lamar Jackson, who has a back injury, and who knows what his status is going to be all week heading into the Sunday night game against Pittsburgh. But that game was all King Henry, and Tyler Huntley played well. Got to give it up. And he's a very competent, capable backup. And the Packer defense was just terrible. I mean, I think Derrick Henry just scored another touchdown. And here it is on a Monday as I'm recording this. But for him to put up 216, 4 touchdowns, I believe he had 36 carries, the most ever in his career. And considering the week before when they had a, 24-13 lead at home against New England, and it didn't give the ball enough to King Henry, and that's a typical John Harbaugh, Todd Monken offense. They forget about their star running back, and then all of a sudden want to start passing the ball. But for Saturday night in Green Bay, that was the recipe to jam Derrick Henry down the Packer defense's throats. And as you saw, they certainly did that. And even though Malik Willis played well and left the game with a shoulder injury, who knows what his status is going to be in the final game. Now, they should just look at that as a bye, as they'll go to Minnesota because the Packers, they may not have Jordan Love and Malik Willis, the backup, who knows he's going to play, but they're locked in at the 7th seed, so they should just play all backups. Might as well sign me for one day. I could be the 4th string there on the team. But Baltimore, with their win, and coupled with what happened in Cleveland yesterday, and do I really need to unpack this? I knew that once the Ravens won that game, I knew the Steelers were going to lose yesterday. Why, you ask? They have not fared well in Cleveland. They've now lost 4 in a row in Cleveland. Divisional games on the road, as I've said a zillion times, are never an automatic, no matter how good or how bad the team is. And I understand the sack record for Myles Garrett to say, I think they were worried about me getting the sack as opposed to winning the game. That's nonsense. I mean, seriously, Myles Garrett, you could think that, believe that all you want. But the Steelers win the game until the bitter end. But the Browns literally were giving them a pretty post-Christmas gift-wrapped box to say, take this game. Take it because we don't want to win. Because after the opening drive where they got the field goal and then the touchdown there, which was an underthrown pass, and Shedeur Sanders started out great but was awful the rest of the game. After those first 2 drives, he was terrible. Now, he made some passes to Jerry Jeudy, etc., and I'm not going to make Shedeur Sanders' game as an end-all be-all. He was below average. I mean, that's all there is to it. I understand his numbers may look nice in the box score. Now, I understand he had the 2 interceptions. The one wasn't his fault. He was getting sacked by Alex Highsmith and it hit off of Cam Hayward's helmet and was picked off by Jack Sawyer, who went the other way. And by the way, Mike Tomlin had a terrible game coaching, which I'll get to. But the Browns are doing anything and everything to gift wrap the game to the Steelers. They dropped a pick 6 by Nick Herbig. They had just opportunity after opportunity, the Jack Sawyer pick, and that was at 10-3, I believe. And why they went for it on a 4th and 1 there at about the, whatever it was, 20-some-odd yard line? Well, maybe it was inside the 20. All right, if you're not going to run the ball, how about finding Freiermuth, and I understand they're decimated with DK Metcalf on suspension, and that should have been the one game. And I'm not saying that because he's not going to play this week. Oh, my goodness. Oh, the pain. But you had no Calvin Austin. Darnell Washington broke his arm. You're probably not going to see him Sunday night against Baltimore. And they're just losing weapons by the second, whatever weapons that they have left. But you had to, on a go route to Scotty Miller to the end zone. I mean, seriously? I can see if that's DK Metcalf because you got a guy that's got size, he's got length, etc. Scotty Miller, if anything, you should have had him bunch formation, have them just an out or maybe even a cut in. That play call was terrible by Arthur Smith or Tomlin, either one. Terrible. And then 2:02 left. Steelers have the ball. 4th and 10 at their 20-yard line. They didn't move an inch. Why is he going for it? There's beyond me. And I understand maybe his thought process was, well, we need a touchdown anyway, so if they kick the field goal, we might as well burn our timeouts here. Why? Kick the ball at 4th down. The clock was already stopped. So you kick the ball, play field position at that point because you're going to burn your timeouts anyway. The Cleveland offense had 40 yards in the second half, and I just didn't understand that. It was just terrible. And I get it, you still need a touchdown anyway, but it's better to have a touchdown to win than a touchdown to tie. And as it was, they came back down the field. They got the 3 and out, burned their timeouts. They went down the field. Pat Freiermuth made 2 big catches. The second one was phenomenal. What a throw by Rodgers, who, like I said before, and I'll say it again, he can still sling it. That guy still has the arm. That guy still has the accuracy, etc. We understand he's long in the tooth, 100%. But that second Freiermuth pass, which got him into the red, and then they had that quick pass. Why couldn't that quick pass on a 4th and 1? The pass that got him inside the 10, where was that on 4th and 1 with the Scotty Miller play? Can you answer that? Why couldn't they do that then? So anyway, now you're inside the 10, and they couldn't punch it in. I understand you could have got an interference call there on MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but it just, man, that's a game where you're just beyond sick. And I'm still sick to even thinking about it and talking about it. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. So now the Steelers let the Ravens back in, and I got news for you. This game Sunday night, I'll break it down in this way. The Steelers are underdog by 3.5 points. If that doesn't get the Steeler locker room rised up, and I understand if you want to use, there's no need to use bulletin board material, but just knowing that the Ravens are favored in your building, that should be enough. That's number one. Number two, the Ravens do not have a pass rush, as evidenced as by the first game in Baltimore where the Steelers won, where Rodgers was barely touched. Now, I'm sure they're going to probably dial up a couple of blitzes. Zach Orr, I hope you're not hearing this, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens. They're going to have to do something because they can't have Rodgers sit in that pocket and start pitching and catching all evening long. So let's see what's going to happen there. And then the other factor of the game is Derrick Henry, who did not have a big game in the first matchup. What happens here? Because Henry, who has just run over the Steelers, dating back to last year, that playoff game, oh, geez, nightmares. But how are they going to slow him down? And also, what's the status of Lamar Jackson? That is going to be enormous because, and I'll say this, even with Lamar Jackson healthy and in the game, he's not going to be 100%. So we're not going to see Lamar Jackson be the whirling dervish, the dynamic, just human highlight reel that we've seen in the past. I'm sure maybe he'll have his moments, but he's going to be playing compromised. So, and who knows if TJ Watt's coming back, and not that he's had a big year, but all those factor into this game on Sunday night, which makes it fascinating. Somehow, some way, I think the Steelers will eke out a win. I don't know how they're going to do it, by hook or by crook. I think without having a pass rush by the Ravens, and hopefully the Steelers will get pressure, whether it's Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson. Hopefully they get to him, and this is going to be a game of field position and who's going to protect the ball the best. Which you can say for every game, but even more so in this game. I mean, that's all there is to it. It could probably come down to a final possession as it did in Baltimore. And I'm not, trust me, when I say the Steelers are going to eke out a win, I say that with the slightest bit of confidence. Because would I be shocked if they lose this game? 1,000% not. But here's another thing you got to factor in too, which I don't know if it's gotten a lot of pub. I talked about this on my channel yesterday. So for all the talking heads and the first takes of the world and all these shows, Colin Cowherd, you're hearing it now. And if you didn't, you heard it last night. This is Mike Tomlin's biggest game since, I would have to say, maybe that Jacksonville game in the playoffs in 2017. Because if this team does not show up and play a good... Now, if they lose 20-17 and they played well, but Baltimore just played that much better, then you tip your cap. But if they're sloppy, if Derrick Henry runs roughshod over them, if Tyler Huntley is looking like Lamar Jackson, circa his MVP years, and they can't protect Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers has a bad game, and I get it, they're going to be compromised with no DK Metcalf, and to me, he should have just gotten one game. Why they gave him two? I understand they're setting the example, etc., but that, to me, I thought that was harsh. And I said that last week. So now, I'm not saying that now because they lost, and now it's all or nothing here come Sunday night. But, oh, man, I mean... Who knows if Calvin Austin's going to come back? Darnell Washington, maybe he plays with a cast. I don't know how bad the arm is broken. Is it a hairline fracture? Oh, I don't know. We're going to find out this week. But I would think they'd eke out a win. And again, I think if the Steelers lose a close game, hard fought, but the Ravens played better, I think he stays. And he'll probably stay overall. But if they lose this game where they shot themselves in the foot, a ton of mental errors, pre-snap penalties, unsportsmanlike conducts, things of that nature, I would not be surprised if there's a sit-down and there's a mutual parting of the ways. I don't think the Steelers are going to fire Tomlin. Think about it. He has 2 more years left on his contract. And even then, it's a reach, even if he has a future game, whether or not they have a parting of the ways. But I'm saying this now. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I would not. I wouldn't. And this is to where a bunch of the players in that locker room are still listening to his message, despite the fact that may be falling on the deaf ears of the fans out there, or the deaf fans' ears. Did I say that right? Deaf, you know what I mean. Falling on deaf ears with the fans as opposed to the players or the front office. So yeah, to me, I couldn't even tell you who's going to win. That's how I feel about it. And we will see. We will break it down. Follow the channel for latest up-to-the-minute interviews, injuries, things of that nature, as I'll keep you abreast with no podcast there on Thursday. And as far as anything else on the schedule yesterday, do I talk about Philadelphia, Buffalo? I mean, that means New England wins the division. And Buffalo, they went for 2 there, which was the right call by McDermott. What are you going to try to do? Tie to go into overtime? Try to go for the win there. And that was a good game by Philly. They played well defensively. But is that one to build on going into the playoffs? I guess you could say that because it is at Buffalo. It was their next to last game in that building. So maybe your stinker bowl, and I got news for you. If you're the Jets yesterday, you have to be upset at the Giants because unless the Raiders beat the Chiefs there on Sunday and you guys lose, the Giants winning in Vegas means that the Raiders have the number 1 pick. And the Giants are number 2, and the Jets are number 3. And if the Jets had any potential of trying to move up to that number 1 pick, you can forget about it now. Because the Raiders are going to ask for the sun, moon, stars, and the entire galaxy to get that pick. And I understand that the Jets have a lot of draft capital, considering they traded away Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams. But if the Giants were there number 1, it would be easier to trade because the Giants aren't going to select a quarterback, or at least so you think, considering they have Jackson Dart. But knowing that the Raiders are at number 1, there is no way, shape, or form that the Raiders are going to trade out of that pick. So now the Jets at 3, at this present moment, they're not going to move up to the Giants. They're just going to hold pat at 3 and maybe get their quarterback at that slot. So with the Giants winning, I'm sure to the chagrin of the Jet fan, they were disgusted knowing that, well, there goes our shot at trying to trade up for the number 1 pick. Barring miracles, meaning that the Raiders win, Jets and Giants both lose, which the Jets will probably lose in Buffalo. And Giants, Dallas, maybe Dallas will win out of pride, who knows. But that's what you have there. And any of the other games I'm not going to get into. Jacksonville, Indy. Indy was done from the night before with Houston beating the Chargers. And the Chargers, obviously, that knocked them out of the NFC West with that loss. And the games on Christmas, I didn't even bother watching at all. Detroit, they lose to Minnesota. They're done, obviously. Kansas City, Denver, I did not watch. Dallas, Washington, I did not watch. So that is pretty much your nutshell of the NFL Sunday. And tonight you have the Rams in Atlanta. Rams right now are going to be locked in at the 5. So unless Atlanta plays spoiler, or it could be 6, they could flip-flop there. Because right now, they are the 6th seed in the conference. And as we take a look at the standings and where we are at, which I pretty much explained, AFC, you have Denver, New England, Jacksonville. Now, could that change? It could, but chances are it probably won't. Jacksonville could get a 1 seed if both Denver and New England loses. And remember, Jacksonville has the tiebreaker over Denver, and Jacksonville has a 9-2 conference record to where New England's already at 8-3. So Jacksonville does have an outside shot to get the 1 seed. But Denver, if they win, they get it. New England, they'd probably be entrenched in the 2. Then you have Pittsburgh or Baltimore will be the 4. Followed by Houston. They're currently 5 because they have the tiebreaker over the Chargers with their win on Saturday, and they beat Buffalo early this season on a Thursday night. And then Chargers right now are the 6th seed, Buffalo the 7, and that is it for the AFC. NFC, we know about Seattle, we know about Chicago. Eagles at 3rd. Carolina or Tampa have the 4. San Francisco currently at 5. Yeah, the Rams will stay at 6 right now because... yeah, the Niners have a better division record despite the fact that they split. Green Bay entrenched in the 7, and then that's it. Nothing else in the wild card. So your NFL drama is going to be Saturday afternoon into evening, Carolina, Tampa, win or go home. Seattle, San Francisco, who gets the 1 seed in the NFC. And Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Sunday night, the final game of the year, win or go home, AFC North. Now, as I stay with the football, but go to the collegiate ranks where the playoff will resume there on New Year's Eve. And then you have the 3 games on New Year's Day, which is great. I wish that New Year's Day would be the final day of college football, where that would be the championship. And obviously, the more they expand, that's not going to happen. But be that as it may, with college football, to me, these are the storylines going in. The first one, to me, we could talk about Ohio State going to defend their title. But to me, it's more about Indiana. To know the season that they've had, undefeated, the head coach, Kurt Cignetti, the quarterback and the Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza. Are they going to get to a championship? To me, they have to get to a championship game. Anything short of that would be a disaster. And if they lose in the championship game, whether it be to Georgia or Ohio State, it happens. It will be bitter. It will be tough. But the deeper they go, they're going to face that much more pressure. And as it is, they're going to play Alabama, who they're going to play fast and loose and are playing with house money. I mean, think about this. They were down 17-0 to Oklahoma. You think they're going to be scared of Indiana? If they're down 17-0 to them? No way. So, and that's going to be in the Rose Bowl, the 4:45 game. So how I look at it is, for the Hoosiers, knowing that they're in the deep end of the pool, knowing that they've answered the critics. Yes, they beat Oregon on the road. Yes, they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship. But now that dust is settled. It's a whole new season come Thursday afternoon into the evening. And how they're going to fare with the hype, the pressure, and let's say if they're down 17-7 at the half, and Alabama gets the ball to start the second half, I want to see how they're going to respond. Because let me tell you something. They'll be tight. And there'll be a lot of questions that the fans will want to have answered to see whether or not they're going to be able to be as resilient and answer in the fashion that a number 1 ranked team would do in a season like they've had this year. So I don't want to hear it. I'm not giving any breaks, any passes, anything to the extent that if Alabama wins the game, whether they win by 1, now if they win comfortably, at least that's going to be more maybe of an indictment on Indiana just being a no-show. But to me, that's the number 1 storyline in my eyes when I look at that. And the second storyline, I'll throw Alabama as well as Miami. How much gas is in their tank considering that they've had big wins on the road to start off this playoff? Now, Alabama, do I think they'll be in the game? I think they will. Will they win? I'll say I think they could. I don't know if they're going to win. I got to give Indiana a little bit more respect, and I know I've been that type of guy dating back to early in the year. Oh, I got to see this against Oregon. Oh, I got to see this against Ohio State. All right, they proved me wrong. Now I got to see this here in the playoff, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt considering the season that they had. And although Alabama has a game under their belt, but that would be 12 days from the last time they played, where I understand Indiana hasn't played since the early part of December. So they're literally almost a month since their last game in the Big Ten Championship. But giving Indiana their dap, I think Alabama's a live dog here. And I think Miami is too, considering that they played a very big defensive game against Texas A&M and how they were able to thwart that offense led by Marcel Reed. Now, Ohio State, I understand there could be a storyline too, trying to be a back-to-back defending champ. Haven't had that since, when was the last back-to-back defending champ? Was it USC, I guess, back in the, I don't even know if they went back-to-back. Well, I know in the playoff era we have not had back-to-back. No, I gotta look at that. Did Alabama win back-to-back? I should know that off the top of my head, but the play of the Hurricanes and the Crimson Tide, can they carry that over, get past the quarterfinal, into a semifinal, maybe even beyond? So I'm going to look at them as the second storyline. And then the third storyline is Ole Miss, because with everything that transpired, with Lane Kiffin leaving to go to LSU, and the big year that they had, and we know what they did in their game against Tulane, I think that they're also a live team here. Maybe not a live dog, and I understand they're going to play a team that they're very familiar with in Georgia. And that was a game, if you remember, what was it? If I pull that up real quick. That was a game, I believe it was in the middle of November. Or middle of October. I'm thinking November. Middle of October. And they actually had a 9-point lead going into the fourth quarter. But then Georgia went past them as if they were standing still, as they outscored them in that final frame 17-0, and they end up winning. Ole Miss is not going to be afraid of Georgia. Now, we have to wait and see on whether or not, with the time off and the play of Trinidad Chambliss, who obviously has been a big-time player for the Running Rebels this year, but how I see it is because of the departure of Lane Kiffin, because of what they've done throughout the course of the year, and they've had a big year. I understand the Georgia loss was one, but I think for them, they're going to say they're going to have to beat us twice. And even though neutral field, and it's in the Sugar Bowl, I believe that is the Sugar Bowl, isn't it? Come on, JAYREELZ, you got to know this stuff. That game is going to be played at night, which is usually the Sugar Bowl game. So, although there'll be a big contingent there for the Bulldogs, but I'm sure a lot of people, think about it. Ole Miss, right next door from Louisiana, I'm sure there'll be a big turnout there. So, I'm going to look at them as the other storyline. Because, yeah, we can talk Georgia. Yes, we can talk Ohio State, the defending champs, like I mentioned. You even want to throw Texas Tech, how they're going to fare in their game, and how that will play out against Oregon. All right, to me, if I'm looking at the breakdown, and more or less what from 1 to 4, which is like the best game and moving down, or by not only just the best game, but the more fascinating, Alabama, Indiana, I think is 1. 2, I'm going to look at Ole Miss, Georgia. And you can even put Ole Miss, Georgia 1 also because of the familiarity. Right behind that is Miami, Ohio State. A lot of people are going to think back to the championship game in 2002. And Oregon, Texas Tech does not bring a lot of luster in my eyes as far as eyeballs to the set. But it's a playoff game, so you're going to definitely watch. And that's what I'm looking at here. Now, as far as the games itself, I think Texas Tech will win. Oregon, this isn't a vintage Oregon team. And I understand Dan Lanning could pull a rabbit out of his hat, but I like the Red Raiders to win that game. I got to say Indiana, it's going to be close though, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some testy moments there by the Hoosiers, but because they've been resilient, because they've responded, I'll pick them to win. Miami, Ohio State. That game is the Cotton Bowl in Jerry's world. And remember, last year, the teams that had byes all lost. Just throw that in the mix. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Miami will be tough, but I think Ohio State will find a way to win that game. And Ole Miss, Georgia. I think Georgia's going to win the whole thing, in my eyes. But Ole Miss, I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss wins this game. Something in my gut is telling me Ole Miss. Because Gunnar Stockton, he's a guy that from 1 week to the next, you don't know what you're going to get. Very unpredictable. I think it's going to be a great game. I think the Oregon-Texas Tech game could be good, but I don't know. To me, that's the least appealing. And when you look at the schedule, New Year's Eve, 7:30 is Miami, Ohio State. High noon, Oregon-Texas Tech. 4 o'clock, I know I said 4:45, but 4 o'clock, Alabama, Indiana, and then 8 o'clock, Ole Miss, Georgia. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely stay locked in, tuned into the channel for any analysis, breakdown, etc. as far as these games go, as they'll be in the middle of the week. And, of course, no podcast one more time there on Thursday. That is your college football. And I know Kyle Whittingham, the former Utah coach, been there forever, is now your Michigan coach. So my guy J-Rod in Michigan, I'm sure he's ecstatic about that. Well, he's ecstatic. He figures solid coach, good coach. That's a guy that he certainly approves as a big Wolverine fan. All right, now let's get to the hardwood as I lace up the high tops. We'll talk some NBA and pretty much what you got out of this past week. I know the Christmas Day games were enthralling with the Knicks coming from behind. And I'll start there because then the next one I'll segue to Knicks and Cavs, where they had a 16-point deficit they had to make up, and they get contributions from Tyler Kolek and Mitchell Robinson and Jordan Clarkson and Jalen Brunson doing Brunson-esque fourth quarter clutch things. And I understand that they're a couple of games behind the Pistons in the Eastern Conference. But are the Knicks the best team? Quietly? Are people going to think that, the Knicks are going to be the team that you're going to have to get to a championship through? Even if the Pistons are the 1 seed and have home court throughout the East? Now, I'll say this. The Knicks, by record, obviously they're not. But by pedigree, what they've done, I'd have to say they are. Just by the slimmest of margins. Because the Pistons, although they fought the Knicks hard in that first round last year, but there are going to be question marks about them going in. Similar to Cleveland last year when they were the 1 seed. And we saw what happened to them. I mean, please, they didn't even get out of the second round. So for the Knicks, they have a big year in front of them. We know about them winning the NBA Cup, and we know about what they did on Christmas Day. And they're going to face off against the Spurs on New Year's Eve, which I'm fascinated to watch. Although the Spurs, that's a rematch of the NBA Cup, but it's a regular season game. Is anybody going to get crazed or over the moon about it? Whether the Knicks win again or if they lose, nothing to get too wrapped up over. But I think the Knicks, I have to say, I guess maybe because I'm closer and I see them more. And I like the Piston roster. They're young, they're hungry, they're ready to take that next step. But I think I trust the Knicks just a little bit more than I do a young Piston squad. And then when you think about the second game on Christmas Day, Spurs in Oklahoma City, where the Spurs beat them by 20 in their building on Tuesday night. And then what do they do for an encore? They only beat them by 15 there in OKC. And, I mean, what more can you say? The Spurs, talk about a team growing up in front of your eyes, that is them. And if there's going to be a clash of the Titans there in the latter part of May, if it so happens to be Spurs, OKC for a chance to get to the finals, that is going to be a hellacious series. And I understand a lot of people, the pundits, etc., they already want to make this Spurs Thunder out to be a rivalry. Come on, these guys haven't played in the postseason, number one. Number two, they're just getting started. And yes, I think it could build up to that, but a rivalry is where two teams don't like each other. A rivalry is when two teams are both good at the same time, which they are. And right now, they've beaten them 3 times here, which is, I don't want to say mind-boggling, but it's very surprising, considering the year that the Thunder got off to. 24-1, and since then, they've lost 4 games and 3 of them to the Spurs. So there's a rivalry brewing, I think, but the rivalry has not arrived yet. To me, I think it will arrive maybe if they meet up in the postseason this year and go at it for 7 games and maybe get to a 7th game and it's feisty and it's physical and it's back and forth. That's where the rivalries are really born out of. Not because they're both good and, let's just throw that in a sentence. Spurs, Thunder, rivalry. They are not that at this moment. But the Spurs, are they an elite team? I think they are already. I mean, they have shown that, come on, when you beat the team has had the best record in the sport 3 times. Not like you beat them once or you hung in another game. No, you beat them 3 times. And the last 2 rather soundly. So yes, I'm going to call them elite, despite how young they are. And then the Lakers, although they righted the ship last night with a win, but you got to wonder what's going on there. Where the head coach, JAYREELZ, came out and said that, I'm going to run them through the ringer on Saturday's practice. They're not going to know what's hit them. And I'm not going to go through the remainder, whatever it was, 58 games, 53 games, whatever it was that he said, that, I'm not going to go through this nonsense. Pretty much telling his team that shape up or guys are going to sit out or be shipped out. So Redick has his fingerprints all over that team. And I understand there's some things you can read online, which I'm not going to buy into just yet, where people are talking about how LeBron James, ever since he's been back, it's upset the chemistry of the team. They haven't played as well, as crisp, etc. All right, you could possibly argue that because they were, I believe, 15-4. Make sure I got this right. They were 15-4 at the time of his return, and since then, I think they're a game over 500. I want to say maybe they're 16-6 or 6-6. Because what is that record? 20-9. Don't know the Laker record off the top of my head. 20-10. So people want to pin it on LeBron. Oh, he's got nothing left. Oh, why is he on the team? Oh, it's disrupting the chemistry. I'm not that locked in watching Laker games night in, night out, but 15-4 to now 22-9, that's 7-4. To police, that's just trying to find excuses or trying to find a scapegoat. So I'm not going to buy into that if you ask me as far as the Lakers go. And let's see what else we have NBA. Yeah, and speaking of OKC, they're not going to match the 2016 Golden State Warriors. That you can forget about. And then you had the Draymond, Steve Kerr love spat. That's much ado about nothing. I understand he's got into a little heated discussion. He goes up into the locker room. I mean, please. Golden State, they're 500. They're going nowhere fast. Now, the Nuggets, Cam Johnson, out 4 to 6 weeks with that knee injury. That is a big loss. He's a guy that was relishing coming to the Rocky Mountains by way of Brooklyn. And listen, 4 to 6 weeks, not the whole year, but they're going to miss him considering that they're 22-9 and have actually had a very good year to start. How about Jokic's Christmas night? A 56-point triple-double. Doesn't get any better than that. Then you had that scrum between Jose Alvarado and Mark Williams, the Pelicans point guard, backup, and then the Suns forward or center. And punches were thrown. They're going to get suspended. I'm surprised the suspension hasn't come down just yet. And then you had Giannis, had that dunk at the end of the game. They were up 5. He steals the ball, dunks it to the disillusionment of the... I shouldn't say disillusioned. They weren't disillusioned. To the disappointment of the Bulls and their players saying, hey, what the hell are you doing dunking on us? The game was already over. So that's what you got there with the NBA. As far as the schedule this week, and I'm just going to go by the key games. Today, hey, if you're in town, you want to drop $180 for a ticket. The Warriors are in town to play the Brooklyn Nets. Denver at Miami. Orlando at Toronto. Indiana, Houston. Yeah, Indiana's not any good. Cleveland at San Antonio. Yeah, that is your NBA for today. Tomorrow, NBC Peacock. They're actually back-to-back nights. Tonight is Cleveland, San Antonio, Dallas, Portland. Tomorrow is Philly at Memphis. And Detroit at LA to play the Lakers. Boston, Utah, Sacramento, LA Clippers. And then Wednesday, you have a bunch of NBA TV games starting at 1 o'clock. Golden State at Charlotte. Phoenix at Cleveland. That's at 3:30. Portland at Oklahoma City. That's at night, 8 o'clock. Denver at Toronto. Yeah, that's about the extent of it for Wednesday. Let's see, Thursday. Houston at Brooklyn. Miami, Detroit. Oh, Miami, Detroit is big. Philly, Dallas. Utah, LA. Friday. Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, Friday, not. Yeah. Oklahoma, Golden State. All right, Denver at Cleveland, maybe. Yeah, Friday's not any good. Saturday, Minnesota at Miami, Philly at New York. They were just here about, what, a week and a half ago. Boston at LA to play the Clippers. And then Sunday, Detroit at Cleveland. Denver at Brooklyn. Yeah, that's about it. Oklahoma City at Phoenix. Yeah, not a big schedule throughout the course of this week. So that's what you got there with the NBA. And as far as the standings go, everything's pretty much status quo. Nothing really jumps at you as far as teams that are making improvements or doing something that's productive in their respective conferences to move up in the standings. All right, now let me get to the NHL. We'll see what's happening on the ice. And the big news that you have there is the Winter Classic. Now, the league had a Christmas break last week. They didn't play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And you're almost at the halfway point. So next week when we reconvene, they'll be past the halfway point or maybe right at it, depending on which team. I know the Red Wings have already played 40 games. But you have the Winter Classic on Friday, which is going to be in Miami at the Lone Depot Park, the site of the Marlins where they play. And the weather, which that day is supposed to be 70 degrees on the dot, and the low could be in the 50s at night. And I believe they only did one other primetime game, and it wasn't even primetime. I want to say that the Minnesota Wild, who hosted the game at Target Center, I believe it was, 4 years ago, or going to be 4 years ago, against the Blues. That game, I believe, started at 5 and ended at 8, or around that time. But this game is going to be at 8 o'clock, TNT. And I think the reason why they did that, because obviously if it was a warm day where the ice could be melted, I'm sure they have whatever it takes underneath the rink or above the baseball diamond to keep the rink cold. But the temperature is supposed to drop. I believe the low, and I don't have I think I locked the low I believe I saw is 53 degrees, which would be, listen, is it going to feel like the Northeast, the Midwest, or north of the border in Canada? Absolutely not. But 50 degrees, maybe you see some people in the stands with some hoodies or maybe a parka or two. Because 53 degrees in Miami feels like 23 degrees in New York. So, and I definitely want to watch that. I want to see that game. I'm sure they have the roof open because to just get a little cooler feel of an element there. So I'm looking forward to that. It's Rangers and Panthers. And the Panthers are looking forward to the return of Matthew Tkachuk, as if you recall, pretty much right before training camp. Instead of doing it right after they won their second cup, he had surgery on his, I believe it was either hernia or maybe it was an adductor muscle or maybe it was an ab muscle. So he's practicing, so he may be on the mend. Who knows? Is he trying to target the Winter Classic game? I don't know, but you may see him back in the next week or two. That we'll have to wait and see. But besides that, NHL, there wasn't much to report there over the weekend. I know the Kraken made a trade. They traded Mason Marchment to Columbus, which is a bit of a surprise. Why did they give up on him as they got him in a trade early that offseason? And then they said, the hell with it, we're going to trade you to Columbus? All right. It happens. But for any other news or notes in the National Hockey League, I mean, that's pretty much the latest. Let's see. Yeah, I know. I didn't watch that last night. Matthew Barzal, 2-hand slashes Marchment, and Isles loss. Yeah, and then Senzel Mark taking a personal leave of absence. Well, let's see this thing with Barzal and Marchment. But, yeah, that's what you have there with the NHL. There isn't much going on. I'll take a peek at the schedule in a moment. And the Islanders lost last night after shutting out the Rangers at home on Saturday, and they lost in Columbus. So we'll get to see what the schedule is going to look like here for the remainder of the week. And I'll talk about some baseball notes before I bid adieu. This is a long ad here. I just want to see the slash, which could mean that Matthew Barzal may get suspended here. And look at this, Marchman's first, well, it may not even be his first game, but for him to get slashed like that, Oh, that's a goal. Oh, they're going to do like overall highlights? All right, let me see. Is this it right here? Yeah, no need to watch that. Let's get to the schedule. Tonight, bunch of games. Washington at Florida, New York at Carolina, Edmonton at Winnipeg. Winnipeg's had a real bad year, considering what they did last year. Kings in Colorado. Colorado still has 2 losses in regulation. Boston on a Western Canada trip in Calgary. And it'll be in Edmonton on Wednesday. San Jose at Anaheim, Minnesota at Vegas. All right, that's pretty much your Monday. Tuesday, Jersey at Toronto, Montreal at Florida, Islanders in Chicago, Carolina at Pittsburgh, Philly, Vancouver, and they're on a West Coast trip too. New Year's Eve, afternoon game, Rangers in Washington, Nashville at Vegas, that's 3 o'clock. Tampa at Anaheim is at 4, Minnesota, San Jose at 4, Winnipeg, Detroit, 6. And then, that's pretty much it. Boston, Edmonton, St. Louis, Colorado, Buffalo at Dallas. New Year's Day, Washington at Ottawa, afternoon game. Utah at New York, Islanders, that is. Winnipeg, Toronto, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Tampa, LA. As we go to now Friday, we know about the game there in Florida, Vegas at St. Louis, Seattle, Vancouver, Minnesota, Anaheim. Saturday, Pittsburgh at Detroit. That's your ABC game at high noon. Utah at Jersey, an afternoon game. Philly at Edmonton. Tampa at San Jose. Toronto at the Islanders. Chicago at Washington. Colorado, Carolina. Very good game. Boston, Vancouver. And that is your Saturday. And then Sunday is Montreal, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Colorado, Florida, Carolina, and then, Vegas and Chicago. That's your NHL schedule. And any other news or notes? Let me just take a quick. No, that's it. Now let me get to Major League Baseball. I'll wrap it up here as I get in the batter's box. And when will these big stars sign? Are they going to wait till spring training? Are they going to wait till the position players have to report? When you still have Cody Bellinger, Bo Bichette, Alex Bregman, the Killer Bees there if you want to clump them together, Kyle Tucker, JT Realmuto, the pitchers that are still out there, the Framber Valdezes, the Eugenio Suarezes of the world. I mean, what are we waiting for? Are we just trying to drag this out? Are we just trying to slow out the process when it comes to these free agents? Don't you want to get them signed, sealed, and delivered? I know baseball's not trying to be relevant here because there's no way. They may have been relevant a couple of weeks ago with the winter meetings and with Pete Alonso signing and Edwin Diaz signing outside of New York to LA to Tampa for Alonso, LA for Diaz with the Dodgers. I mean, this is what you have. That your big sign, sealed and delivered players are Ryan O'Hearn to the Pirates or Zach Eflin back to Baltimore. Tyler Soderstrom, 7 for 86, now the richest athletic player ever. More than Reggie, more than Catfish Hunter, more than Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Luis Severino, Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler. No, it is Tyler Soderstrom. And then they also get Jeff McNeil, speaking of the A's, for Yordan Rodriguez and $5 million. I mean, listen, if this kid could turn out to be something, anything, you take it. But I'm not going to get on the Mets soapbox today. That I'll spare you guys. But I'm curious, when will these big stars sign? What's taking them so long? Are they negotiating? Are they talking? Could something happen after the new year, but within the first week? And not have something pop up on the feed, the sports feed, and be like, whoa, this guy got signed here, or whoa, this guy signed there. Don't want to see that. But chances are we're probably going to see that. That's baseball. They drag it out. Unlike the NFL or NBA where it's that 3 or 4 day window and players sign, or get traded, whatever. Maybe it gets extended to a week max, but Baseball just wants to drag this sucker out. And chances are they're going to do that heading into the new year. So we just have to wait and see, baseball fans, as that will just about conclude the latest episode. In fact, shout out to Anthony Joshua. He was involved in a car accident where I believe he had minor injuries, but 2 other passengers, I believe in another car, were killed. So certainly just terrible story. Thoughts, prayers, condolences go out to their families. This happened in Nigeria. I believe it happened there. I'll double check that. It definitely did not happen here in the United States, that I can tell you. That was in Nigeria, like I mentioned. So Joshua hopefully has a speedy recovery. But that'll do it, my good people. Another episode just about the books. As always, thank you so much for passing by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about the toy department of life called sports. And if you haven't done so, as I mentioned at the top, I'll say it one last time. Please subscribe, rate, review, throw me a few stars, write a review on Apple, Spotify, the YouTube channel, at JAYREELZ. Definitely go there. I've surpassed 900 subscribers, trying to get to 1,000. If by hook or by crook, New Year's Day. If not, I'm going to keep plugging away with my heart, my hustle. But this is where I need your help. So go ahead and hit subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And if you need to hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion, you can do so at the following: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, or on Instagram, JAYREELZ. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just a number. On Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just a number. The old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals. And I'm also on Twitch, JAYREELZ1. Did I say that already? I think I did. Whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do. People in the blood and the DNA, going on 2 years this coming February. And as I said at the top, I thank you all, my day ones and my first day followers, subscribers, etc. 2026 is going to be bigger and better. Has to be. Will be. And with your help, it's going to go a long way. This little engine that is doing this independently with no team. I'm the podcast host, the editor, the writer, the marketer, advertising, trying to get sponsors, future guests, partnerships, you name it. I wear all the hats. So if you can, spread the word, take a screenshot, share it to me on my social media accounts. I'll spread that out for all those who are unaware, family, friends, foes, frenemies. If you could do that for me, people, I'd appreciate it. Because whether you do or do not know, again, in the blood and the DNA, this is what I love to do, talking sports since birth. Because where else are you going to find everything I just talked about in this one podcast? Yes, NFL, college football, NBA, hockey, baseball, among golf, tennis, boxing, MMA, you name it, I got you covered. So as long as I'm sitting in front of this microphone and camera, I will deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury, my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens in the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are. The JAYREELZ Podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. Have a happy new year, a safe, happy, healthy, and prosperous one. And even though there's 2 days left, whatever it is, get started now. Don't wait till January 1st or worse, January 5th, where you're going to push it till Monday. Start now so you can go into 2026 firing, shot out of a cannon. And until next time on the JAYREELZ Podcast, on the flip, baby.